A state of political limbo becomes a state of emergency in Thailand as the Prime Minister resists calls to step down. But as Bangkok's streets descend into chaos, the country's no closer to any political solution. Are fresh elections the way out, or will they just give rise to the same problems again? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. Just what is going on in Thailand these days? In fact, what's been going on in Thailand for 2.5 years, which has rendered the country unable to hold down a leadership and plunged it in and out of political chaos. Well, perhaps more worryingly this time is the way that chaos and indeed violence has reached out onto Bangkok's streets. It all kicked off Saturday, a series of protests timed to coincide with the ASEAN summit hosted by Thailand. At the venue in Pattaya, anti-government protesters broke into the conference centre before moving events on to the capital, Bangkok. Then on Monday it really turned violent. Thai troops firing at crowds of anti-government protesters in the centre of the city. Demonstrators fighting back with firebombs and rocks. And this whole volatile situation has forced Prime Minister Jazeera to declare a state of emergency, the third time in Thailand in 8 months. Behind all the violence, though, the protesters' demands are pretty simple. They want Prime Minister Abuzer to resign and they want fresh elections to be held. And they have the support of that man, the former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, of course ousted back in 2006, but who retains a groundswell of support in Thailand. Right, let's explain some of the background here, because 2.5 years of political upheaval in Thailand means a very complicated trail has been left. First, the protest groups, perhaps offhandedly monikered as Thailand's colourful protesters. The red-shirted protesters are from the United Front of Democracy Against Dictatorship. They are against the current government, not necessarily pro-Thaksin. Some were actually quite vocal against him before he was ousted. And the protesters in the yellow shirts are from the People's Alliance for Democracy. They support the current government and are anti-Thaksin. Last November, you might remember, they closed down Bangkok's international airport and forced the Thaksin-aligned administration out. Now, the reason they're protesting, well, it stretches back to 2006. First of all, a snap election which was due in April. It was boycotted by the opposition. And then that bloodless military coup in September, which removed Thaksin from power while he was at the UN General Assembly. That was the injury. The insult came in May of 2007 when Thaksin's Thai Rak Thai party was banned and a new military-drafted constitution approved. That constitution, though, did take Thailand to general elections in December of 2007, but what a familiar feel about the winning party. It was called the People Power Party, but it was, in reality, just a reincarnation of Thaksin's Thai Rak Thai party, the party that was banned. Then it all unravelled again. This man, the newly elected Prime Minister Samak Sundaravai, didn't last long. He violated a conflict of interest law by, of all things, hosting a cooking show while in office. He was thrown out. Then 3 months later, this man, his replacement, Somchai Wongsuwat, Thaksin's brother-in-law, he got thrown out, this time for neglecting his duties in a previous government job. And so this man, a third new Prime Minister, Jazeera, who is now under real pressure, as we see, from those red shirt protesters, to quit. So it's an ongoing saga which seems to just repeat itself in much the same fashion. Wonder, is there a way out? Let's discuss that with our guests. In Washington, D.C., Bunjab Jarawan Chonwanit, he is a member of the Thai D.C. Forum, a group supportive of the Thai government. In Boston is Zachary Abuzer, a professor of political science at Simmons College in Boston. He specialises in Southeast Asian politics. And in Oxford in the United Kingdom is Gon Buckhorn, an associate professor and supporter of the red shirt protesters. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Inside Story. Gon Buckhorn, I'll come to you first in Oxford. First of all, your reaction to what we've seen, particularly in the last 24 hours, such violence on the streets of Bangkok.
Well, I think it's an absolute outrage that armed troops have been using live ammunition in order to disperse demonstrators, pro-democracy demonstrators. This puts Thailand on the par with the Burmese regime. And also the aims are the same. Whenever regimes use the army to kill or maim demonstrators, it's in order to retain the powers of the elite. It's in order to prevent democracy. And I think that really we have to understand that this entire crisis, which started late in 2005, is a result of the fact that the old elites have refused to respect the democratic wishes of the majority of the Thai population. And this is because they are very much afraid that the empowerment of the Thai population will erode these old privileges that they have had. And here we have to understand that the yellow shirts are a coalition of royalists, people in the palace, the army, and the Democrat Party, and they are committed to fighting to building what they call a new order of politics, and that basically is a return to dictatorship. And what they have done so far is to frustrate the democratic process. And the red shirts are now a citizens' movement in order to build democracy in Thailand, and that's why I support them.
Okay, let's get to some reaction from Mr. Bunjob in Washington, D.C. You must admit, this level of reaction from the government, the firing of what look like almost machine guns in the street, it is extraordinary and has taken this idea of protest in Thailand to a new and very dangerous level.
Yeah, but this is what I believe is the righteousness of the government to use the force to disperse the riot, which it became the riots right now. And you can see that in the past 2 to 3 days, there is a violent attempt against the Prime Minister of Thailand, the Minister of Thailand, and even though a storm into the ASEAN Summit, we do not know what the purpose of that. Besides, try to embarrass the Thai government that they cannot handle the situation in Thailand. However, even though the constitution gives the right to all these people to protest against the government, if they are commit the wrongdoing, but have they done any wrongdoing at this time? I haven't seen anything yet. However, the protest must be peaceful and unarmed. In storming into the building, into the hotels, siege the car, stop the traffic and search in the car and try to hurt the people. That is clear violation of citizen rights.
And so
that is clear violation of the Constitution.
And so meeting violence with violence was the only way?
It's not only way, but if you look at the government try to use the soft stance for how long? We as a citizen, we look at that issue and we think it is a time to use the force to disperse, but we do not call for the military or use the rifle to shoot the people, and we do not know that yet at this time. Why don't we let this incident settle down and found a committee and investigate what actually happened in Thailand right now? This is a hearsay situation. We all live outside the country. A lot of things have been going on in Thailand. We have not known the truth yet. So don't jump to conclusion too quick that the military shoot into the cloud or a lot of people die. Let this finish this, put the law and order into the government hand, stop the situation, and then come down to the table and talk.
Okay,
and set up the committee, investigate it.
Let's bring in Zachary Abuzer, who's waiting over in Boston. Maybe you can also give us a bit of background to the situation. When you look at the protests now, the red shirt protests, and you compare it to the yellow shirt protests in November, which were, you could say, successful and a lot more peaceful. What's the difference? Why is the level of anger, and it really is anger on the streets, why is it so much higher this time around and such higher levels of violence?
Well, I have to agree with Professor Gon Buckhorn about this. The fact is that in December 2007, the Thai Thai's reincarnation won 57% of the vote. They should have formed the government, and what you saw in 2008 was a reversal of democracy. The judiciary became completely politicized and kept on issuing rulings against the incumbent government. They threw out a prime minister on very shaky grounds. They threw out another one. They banned the party for a second time. And I didn't see the, such condemnation of our last speaker when the People's Alliance for Democracy were taking over the airport in Bangkok and took over the Prime Minister's office for 2 months. It seems to be they're willing to accept mob violence when it's in their favor. This is a real tragedy that they've had to put truth.
That's not true, sir.
It's absolutely true. It is absolutely true that the People's Alliance for Democracy took over the government house for 2 months. For 2 months, they took over the airport. I'm sorry that you cannot deny those facts, that they took over those buildings.
Can you tell me any incident in the airport that anyone get hurt from this?
I'm not saying violence, but I'm not saying violence, but it was mass.
Why the yellow shirt have to take over the airport?
It was.
You have to go back to the cause of it. Over 193 days that the yellow shirts protest on the street.
There's nothing legal about taking over an airport.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to jump in here
just
only
on
because.
That point, but we have to come. I agree with you on that point. We have to come to the table to sit down. The Constitution gives the right to the people without having organic law to support what are boundary of the protest. We have to come to the table to sit down and talk how we're going to settle this issue. You need to come up with the law to support this. You cannot use the traffic violation or other kind of law to stop the Constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of the land.
Okay, Mr. Punjab, I'm going to jump in.
Why don't we sit down on the table and draft the law? Hey, this is the boundary that you can protest.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, please. We've got 3 guests, and I would like to let some of them have something to say as well. Zachary Abuzer, just a quick reply from you before I go back to Gon Buckhorn.
The Constitution is clearly the supreme law in the land, and we must understand that after the military coup in September 2006, it was rewritten, and it was rewritten in many ways to try to prevent a return of the Iraq tie. They tied the party's hands behind their backs, and yet they were still able to win a majority of the vote. That's democracy. And the monarchists and the military and some of the Democrats never accepted that. And I think that it's just set the country on a path. Right now, they definitely have to sit down and talk, but the only way you're really going to get somewhere is if you drop the charges against the former Prime Minister Thaksin, invite him back to the country, because he's the only person who is actually able to turn off the demonstrations right now and have a return to civility.
Okay, quick thought from Gon Buckhorn before we head to the break. Because one of the demands of the red shirts is, of course, the fresh elections. I'm wondering, though, if there were fresh elections in Thailand, would it not just give rise to the whole problem again and start the cycle all over again?
Well, I think that the issue about elections is we have to ask the question, under what rules will they be held? If they are held under the rules that were dictated by the military, then they won't be free and fair elections. But if free and fair elections were held, Thaksin's party would win again, but it wouldn't solve the problem immediately, because the yellow shirts are not prepared to respect the democratic wishes of the people. I mean, if you listen to the rantings of the yellow shirt representative, he seems to believe that a government has the right to shoot down protesters in the streets. Well, most international governments do not believe that they have the right to do that. And I think that this really represents the arrogance and the total lack of commitment to democracy from the yellow shirts.
Gentlemen, stick around. We're going to take a break on Inside Story. When we come back, we're going to have a closer look at the current Prime Minister himself, a man not elected by the people and now apparently paying the price. We're back in a moment.